There's an argument that gets brought up a lot in Pokemon investing, and specifically on my channel, a lot of people argue in the comment section all the time talking about this topic that you should only be buying booster boxes at $90 to $100 at release. And if you don't buy a booster box then and you wait for a booster box, let's say to go up to $150, $200, if you wait until it gets to that price, you shouldn't buy because it's too expensive. You missed the boat. Just move on to the next thing. Just buy the new boxes. And a lot of people talk about this. So that's what I wanted to discuss today, is to talk about this whole ideology that a lot of people have. And it's a lot of new investors that I specifically noticed have this hard set, thinking that you should only buy for $900 because it's less downside risk. And that's basically it. Now, I want to talk about this because it's just a lot of people, I feel like especially new people, they have this kind of, mindset that is very not open. And I feel like, I don't know why it's specifically just the new investor people, but a lot of people are just very passionate about their opinions and are not open at all. So hopefully people who watch this video could be a little bit open-minded and just hear what I have to say. So the first thing I want to talk about, I guess, is what people's argument is that, there's less downside risk with buying a booster box at $90 to $100. So I totally agree. I'm not disagreeing that, if you buy a booster box at that price point, there's less downside risk. I 100% agree, because at that price point, you're paying pretty much what's wholesale price or maybe a little bit above it. And the chances that a booster box goes below wholesale is pretty unlikely. And if it does, it doesn't go under wholesale by much. So I do agree there's less downside. But there's just a lot of factors that a lot of people that say that booster boxes that are $150, $200 are too expensive and they're risky and all these other things, I just don't agree on. I feel like there's a lot of other factors people ignore who say that. And they only focus on the fact that there's less downside risk, which I don't think, in terms of being safe, it's smart. But in terms of investing, and specifically what I don't like is we're talking about investing into Pokemon cards. Investing into something like this, obviously everyone has their own strategy and their own mindset. But I feel like when we're investing into something like Pokemon, I'm willing to be a little bit more risky. And I'm not only looking for things that are less downside risk. I'm looking for things with more upside. And that's one thing where I feel like my mentality is different than a lot of people, is that I'm not only looking at downside, because if I'm being so safe trying to invest into a Pokemon, why even invest into Pokemon? I would just invest into something else that, is already proven, like, stocks or whatever. Why would I, do that with Pokemon? Just only focus on the downside. And that's where I'm different. And that's where I feel like there's a disconnect with people on my channel that comment and just what I do, because people bring this, argument a lot up on my channel, because I talk about how I buy these Sword and Shield booster boxes that are out of print that I'm getting for under market. A lot of people don't agree with my decision on that, and that's why a lot of people argue that I should just be buying these new releases. But there's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, is that I see more upside with these Sword and Shield booster boxes that have proven, that they're strong and they're sought after, because that is something a lot of people don't think about. I'm not saying, that these Scarlet and Violet booster boxes are not going to go up in value. I'm not saying that at all. But for some of these booster boxes, there's just more upside risk in the fact that you don't know how they're going to perform. Because, for example, like Sword and Shield base, Paradox Rift, I know I'm cherry picking, but those have done absolutely nothing since being released. Yes, maybe in a year from now they're going to go up, probably. Some of these other boxes have started to recently go up in Scarlet and Violet. I made a video talking about how Scarlet and Violet is performing very strongly. But you just don't know where the ceiling is. You just don't know how it's going to perform. And people have this ideology that all these they pretty much, how people think about it is that all these booster boxes are the same. So Paradox Rift, Obsidian Flames, Temporal Forces, it's all the same than Sword and Shield. Like, they're the same. Like, these sets, they're going to perform the same, they're going to behave the same. A lot of people have that mindset. So when they compare, let's say Lost Origin is like $220 a box versus Paradox Rift, a lot of people think that Paradox Rift is going to be a better investment because it's just cheaper, which I don't entirely agree on, because Lost Origin has proven itself to be a very strong set, and just the growth it's had, it just shows how strong it is. And Paradox Rift has not shown that at all. So that's where I say there's less downside risk buying that Paradox Rift booster box, but there's more upside risk in terms of you don't know how it's going to perform, when it's going to perform. And that's where I'm willing to buy Sword and Shield booster boxes, because it's just in an era that's different than Scarlet and Violet. I don't think anyone else can, say differently that Sword and Shield was an iconic era. It was during the time of the boom. And with a set like Lost Origin, just pretty much any of the sets in Sword and Shield that have alternate arts, that they are very strong. And when you're able to get them for under market, and you know the set has proven to be strong, I don't see how people can argue that's a bad investment, or you should just be buying Scarlet Violet instead. Scarlet Violet, like I said, I think these boxes will still perform well in the future, but a lot of these are just unknown. And I feel like Scarlet and Violet, since we are in a bull market, the performance short term right now is very strong. But I really would be interested to see where these boxes are going to perform in the next 2 years when they go out of print. So that's just my opinion on this whole topic, where people just only look at the downside risk, but don't look at upside, because Scarlet and Violet, some sets have proven themselves already, but for the ones that have not, it'll be interesting to see how they perform. And yeah, that's just my opinion on this whole thing. And just with Sword and Shield and out of print boxes, if I'm able to get them at $150, $200 for out of print boxes that are most likely not going to get reprinted, I just don't see where people have this idea that there's a lot of risk because it's just over MSRP or over wholesale. If it's out of print, the chances a box tanks or anything like that is very, very unlikely. I mean, I feel like it's almost never happened, because products like sealed products are deflationary, and even if there's a decrease in demand, people are the supply for these boxes are always going down. So I don't like the argument of there's more or there's like a lot of risk buying a box that's that expensive, because I don't really think that's true, just in my opinion, when a booster box is out of print. So that's, I guess, the whole talk I wanted to have before I show you guys the data of older booster boxes that are expensive, that have still performed very well and still sell pretty often. Because that's another thing people talk about is how are you going to sell these booster boxes when they get to $1,000, $500, or whatever? Like, wouldn't you just rather have a booster box that's $100 and it doubles in price, and it's going to be easier to sell, versus maybe a $500 booster box that doubles in price, it's going to be harder to sell? Well, think about it this way: if a booster box is $100 and another booster box is $500, you're gonna have to sell five more. You're gonna have to sell 5 booster boxes compared to 1 to get the same gain. And yes, the liquidity is probably going to be easier, but you're gonna have to sell more volume. So it's kind of a toss-up, in my opinion, on how you compare the two. But in my opinion, I'd rather have a more expensive booster box than multiple just less expensive booster boxes. That's just kind of me. So that's another reason why I'm buying some of these older Sword and Shield booster boxes for 150, 200. I just feel like there's more upside, and I'm fine if they go up and be more expensive, up to like the $400 or $500 range. Like, I don't really care, because I feel like still then that's not that expensive. But anyways, that's kind of just besides the point. So going on to these booster boxes, just to show you guys these ones that have proven to be good sets, that have still been performing and still sell pretty often. I just want to show you guys these. So first here we have Team Up. So Team Up, you can see, has gone up 35%, and it started at $1,850 from 35%. So if you do the math on that, what is that, like $600 that it's gone up in the past year? So that's a lot, obviously, for just one product. And you can see with Team Up, they're still selling a lot. Like, people have this idea that these boxes don't sell, they sit. If you buy a popular set and you get a booster box, it's gonna sell. Like, look at Team Up. Like, obviously these aren't as liquid as other products, but for how much money you're making off each one and just the gain, I feel like if you're selling it for under market, and that's one thing I would also recommend if you're probably trying to sell these more expensive booster boxes and you're trying to get rid of it quick, you got to sell it for under market. A lot of people, the reason why I feel like some of these boxes are also don't sell as often is because people are selling them for above market because they're expensive boxes. So I feel like that's another reason why some of these don't sell as much, is because just people want more money. But you can still see these sell a good amount. Next is Evolving Skies. I just made a video talking about Evolving Skies. A lot of people didn't like it because they say that I'm crazy, that $700 is way too expensive. Just buy a $100 Scarlet Violet booster box. That whole video, you can check it out if you want, where I talk about that. But these still sell very often. Some people were saying Evolving Skies is not liquid at all. Like, that is just the most untrue thing. Like, I'm just going to scroll. You can see all the prices and just look. There's a lot of listings other than just the booster boxes. But you can see the dates and just look at how often they sell. Like, it's every single day, and a lot sell because there's just a lot of demand, even though this booster box is very expensive. It's all mixed listings, but you can do your research yourself and you'll find that they sell very often. Unbroken Bonds, another booster box that's performed very well. in the past year here, still gone up a lot in value, and they still sell very often. You can see here with all these, they're still selling pretty much like once every few days at least, so still not that illiquid. Ultra Prism, same thing, performed very well in the past year, and these are older boxes. These aren't even like, I'm not showing you really many Sword and Shield boxes. A lot of these are just Sun and Moon. So I'm trying to give you guys some evidence that these Sword and Shield boxes that are 2-3 years old, and about a few years from now, they're going to be as old as some of these Sun and Moon boxes, and they're still growing. Like these Sun and Moon boxes haven't stopped, and they're still selling good enough to the point where I feel like you can't say it's super illiquid. So you can see, scroll, they're still selling. And lastly, Cosmic Eclipse. You can see still has performed decently well for what it is. It's like $1,000 now. And you can still see this one isn't selling as much. Like I find it kind of weird that some of these boxes don't sell as much as other ones, but I think it's just because it's expensive. But yeah, Cosmic Eclipse doesn't sell as often as some of the other ones, but still isn't the worst thing ever. So that's all I wanted to talk about today, is just, people need to look at other factors other than just downside risk when buying booster boxes, because you can't compare one set to another just based off of booster box price, because there's a reason why these Sword and Shield boxes that are only 2 years old that are $200. There's a reason for that. It's because there's high demand. Some of these Scarlet Violet sets that are a year old, like Paradox Rift, they're still super cheap. They're probably good investments in terms of, yes, they're a year old, less downside risk. It's not a bad set, but why is it $100? It's because there just isn't as much demand for it. And obviously, if you're doing long term, it's a good pickup. But other than that, like, I just don't like the idea that older booster boxes that are more expensive are bad investments, because I don't think that's true at all. So that's all I wanted to say today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Comment your opinions about this down below. I'm going to get a lot of people that still are going to disagree and say that Scarlet Violet is the best thing ever. But we will just have to see, and time will tell to see if, buying these Sword and Shield boxes at $150, $200 was a bad idea compared to, if you were to just buy a Scarlet Violet box at $100. We'll have to see, because this is all speculation. But that's just my opinions about this. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.